Welcome to this explainer. We live in a world absolutely obsessed with highlights. We're constantly scrolling through these perfect, seamless moments of triumph. But behind every flawless performance you see, there's a hidden equation. Today, we're going to completely deconstruct the illusion of effortless success, and we're going to do it by looking at the hard, cold math of discipline. And I promise you, by the end of this, the way you look at success, failure, and your own daily routines, it's going to be completely transformed.
So, let's jump right in with a question that honestly hits home for all of us. How many times have you waited to feel motivated? Really think about it. How often have you put off a workout, or stared at a blank screen instead of starting that project, or just delayed making a tough phone call, all because you didn't quite feel like it? We tell ourselves, right? Oh, I'll do it when inspiration strikes. But let me ask you, how often does that magical feeling actually show up when you need it most? And this right here perfectly highlights the difference between average performers and the absolute elite. The most disciplined people in the world, they don't magically possess some massive hidden reserve of motivation that you don't have. They aren't genetically gifted with this constant burning desire to work hard. The difference is actually incredibly simple. They just stopped waiting for the feeling. They completely stopped treating motivation as a prerequisite for taking action. To really break this down, let's get into section 1, the myth of effortless. We're going to look at Roger Federer. This is a guy who won 20 Grand Slam titles and spent a mind-boggling 310 weeks as the #1 tennis player on the planet. And for 2 decades, literally everyone, commentators, fans, other players, described his style with one specific word: effortless. But here's the fascinating part. He actually hated that word. In 2024, Federer gave the commencement speech at Dartmouth, and instead of just bragging about his records, he opened with this massive admission. He said, "Effortless is a myth. I had to work very hard to make it look easy." He told the graduates that when people called his playing effortless, they meant it as a compliment, sure, but it frustrated him because it completely erased all the invisible, grueling work he put in behind the scenes. Because the reality is, his legendary grace was 100% manufactured. Get this, in his early years, he was actually known for whining, swearing, and throwing rackets. I mean, this is the guy we now call the most elegant player in tennis history. And that proves a massive point for us. Poise, precision, and discipline are built. They're not naturally granted. We usually only get to see the final, polished version of successful people, so we just assume they were built differently. But no, they just did the ugly, unglamorous work long enough that it finally started to look easy. Which brings us to section 2, riding the wave versus real discipline. There was this incredibly pivotal moment early in Federer's career that forced him to realize he lacked true mental endurance. It wasn't a physical limit, but a psychological one, and it got exposed in a very public way. He was playing at the Italian Open, and before the match, his opponent gave this brutal but completely honest assessment to the press. He said, "Roger will be the favorite for the first 2 hours, then I'll be the favorite after that." Ouch, right? Imagine hearing your opponent say that about you. At first, Federer was confused, but then the reality sank in. It exposed a huge flaw in his game. Think about what that opponent actually meant. For the first 2 hours, you're fit, you're fast, your mind is totally clear. Honestly, anyone can play well then. Anyone can show up fired up when their legs are fresh. But after 2 hours, that's when things change. Your legs get wobbly, your mind wanders, and your discipline fades. Performing well when you're fresh isn't discipline at all. That's just riding the wave. True discipline is what happens after the wave crashes. And Federer realized in that exact moment, he didn't have it yet. He had to build it. Okay, let's move into section 3, the 54% reality. This is the most mind-blowing mathematical hook from his whole speech. This part of the explainer is going to fundamentally change how you view winning and losing on a daily basis. Let's start with a massive number, 80%. Over his incredibly long career, Roger Federer played 1,526 singles matches. Out of all those high-stakes matches against the literal best athletes in the world, he won nearly 80% of them. That is an astronomical success rate. It's what makes him a legend. But here is the shocking contrast. To achieve that legendary 80% match win rate, what percentage of the individual points do you think he won? Just 54%. The greatest tennis player of all time won barely more than half of the actual points he ever played. It's basically a coin toss. Almost half the time he swung his racket to score, he failed. And the psychological lesson here is just profound. When you lose basically every second point, you learn real quick not to dwell on every shot. If Federer had let himself get devastated every time he lost a point, which again was 46% of the time, there is no way he would have won 80% of his matches. Losing nearly half the time forces you to accept the math. A single bad moment cannot and does not define the entire game. So how do you survive that kind of failure rate? You have to master a rapid mental loop. Lose, point, reset fast, move on. Most of us do the exact opposite, don't we? We have one minor setback at work and suddenly we think the whole project is doomed. One bad day of eating and the entire fitness routine goes out the window. One setback and we fall right back into waiting for motivation. Federer's career wasn't built on never failing. It was built on this incredibly fast ability to reset. The score simply doesn't matter until it's final. Let's look at Section 4, Redefining True Talent, where we flip a major misconception on its head. If the ability to reset is what actually makes a champion, then we really need to change how we define talent. We have to move past just genetic gifts like height or hand-eye coordination. Federer completely reframed this. He classified things like discipline, patience, trusting yourself, loving the process, and literally just managing your life as talents. These are practiced behaviors. Sure, some people might be born with a slight head start, but everybody has to work at them. The moment you stop thinking of discipline as this magical aura you either have or you don't, and start treating it as a tangible skill you actively practice, everything changes. Every single time you show up when you don't want to, you are practicing your discipline talent. And that brings us to the ultimate contrast we need to cement here today. Motivation is a feeling. It comes and goes, it's fickle, and you can't control it. Discipline, on the other hand, is a decision you make daily. You make it once today, and then you wake up and make it again tomorrow. Federer didn't become the best because he woke up feeling super inspired for every single training session for 20 years. No way. He became the best because he made the decision to show up, regardless of how he felt. He relied on the math of discipline, not the magic of motivation. Which leaves us with a final, provocative thought to wrap up this explainer. You already know what needs to be done. You know exactly what work is waiting for you. So are you going to stop waiting for the illusion of effortless motivation? Are you ready to embrace the resilient math of discipline, reset when you inevitably drop a point, and make the decision tomorrow? The choice is entirely yours. Thanks for joining me, and I challenge you to go put this into practice right now.